Sunday, July 19th is a day which will always hold a really special place in my heart because on this date, 1973, minutes a long time ago, a long, long time ago, my father and I did a dad-son degenerate horse betting doubleheader day-night thing, Thistledown and now Mountaineer, then Waterford Park, and had a lot of luck at the windows. The sun was shining, and man, we couldn't lose. And day sticks in my mind. So even when it rains on July 19th, it is sunny in my heart. And in fact, it was sunny today. Got some rain yesterday, though. So Mountaineer is off the turf, and that's resulted in 2 4-horse fields. You can't blame the racetrack for that. You can't blame management. You can't blame Mountaineer. If you're going to card grass races, then you have to accept that because it happens when races come off the turf. So that is not their fault. I will say that on Wednesday, what has become a really rare negative rail bias, and it might have even had a touch of wider the better pro-closer thing going on there. That's a fine line to draw. There were some upsets that resulted in this humongous pick 5 payoff. I will go no further, though, than to say that the track was no good from the 3-post on in. And although there were some off-the-pace winners that upset odds, you could wire. I think several horses did that as long as they were wisely steered well out from the inside. Now, that is an increasingly rare bias at Mountaineer. And in my experience, generally results from really dry conditions, which were in existence on Wednesday. It hadn't rained for numerous days before that. Kind of a mini drought, I would say. And in 1923 in particular, 2023, in particular, when I was still working at Mountaineer and we had this historic drought, it seems like they couldn't get enough water onto the mountain main to bind it and to make it fair. And it was no good along the inside. And in fact, it was much better, well removed and buffered out from the rail. Now, those weather conditions have not necessarily produced that kind of a trend, temporary trend, in 2024 or so far this year. But I think that might have been what reared its head on Wednesday. And we did have some rain yesterday. I would say sufficient rain to chase the dead rail boogeyman away, and he doesn't show up too often anymore. So whatever the case, welcome to my dungeon. I am Mark Patterson, and this is the place where you're welcome to come and share your deepest, darkest handicapping thoughts and secrets. I do what I love to do, what I used to do, break the races down in real time. I've also got a website where I post my track bias notes, kind of in diary form from day to day to day. So check that out. You can access it at the Dungeon 2025, but that is different and separate from the YouTube channel from which I emanate on my racing analysis. Not a tout show. You guys know the drill. I just try to offer some local knowledge and hopefully some kick-ass analysis. Can't guarantee winners. Nobody can do that. And I'll pick more than my share of losers in the long run. But I can pretty much guarantee some insightful analysis. Yeah, July 19th, 1973, a day which will live in my heart forever. It's almost like a holiday for me. So let's see what happens on this July the 19th, guys. You guys picked up on that negative rail thing on Wednesday, right? It was just blatant, I thought. And whereas pro rail circumstances generally favor speed and enable the horse player to narrow down the list of potential winners to horses that probably are going to get inside trips, flash the kind of speed to drop over to the inside, one of the two. And it renders races a lot of times predictable. An anti-rail bias tends to swallow up the speed and to penalize the kind of ground-saving trips that usually result in good things. So it kind of turns the rhythm of races upside down on their head. So it's more conducive to long shots, the negative rail thing. So when the rail's bad, you're not going to hit a high percentage of your wagers. So try and make the ones that you do hit count. And I see we already have some comments there, so I will click on the comments and get to them in due time. First race was never scheduled for turf. It's 6 furlongs on the mountain main, a fast mountain main, never twos, $4,000 claimers. And I had a trip note up for this race, which I'm going to put up there. I've got the odds notes, puzzling morning line prices. Didn't find much of that tonight. And it's not fair to do it when a race comes off the turf anyways, or when a race gets scratched to pieces, because that changes what the board looks like and what the board was ever going to look like. But I think I do have one race flow note this evening. Yeah, first race with 5 speed capable entrants, having raced at shorter trips last start. Pace figures more competitive than it might seem at a glance. And that is the case here because I think 5 of these ran shorter than 6 panels last time. And I think all 5 have been known to get the lead before. And shorter sprints can sometimes blunt a horse's and camouflage a horse's early foot a little bit. So some of these things that were sitting 4th at first call last time or 5th and not that far back at first call at 5 or 5.5, you move them back out to 6 furlongs. And they could be major pace factors in here. I like the 3-horse who was scratched out of this a lot. So I think I'm going to go to the 4 now, Mariette. I'm not going to like the price, though, for sure. Mariette was second last time, going 5.5 furlongs and stalked the pace there and performed bravely enough. Now, Mariette wants the lead, apparently, off those 2 Charlestown front-running efforts there, was claimed. Silva's kind of branching out and claiming a horse or 2 down there. And also has been more active at the box at Mountaineer than he used to be. Now, he's got the pipeline to import his own horses from the West Coast and from Phoenix, certainly, but just can't get his hands on enough horses, it seems like, nowadays. Juan Pablo Silva. So he went to Charlestown and picked on big heavy boy, Anthony Ferrier. Boy, that's battle of the Titans there. And when he haltered Mariette at 9-5, Mariette's buyer from the previous start at Charlestown took a 15-point hit. And that's not a clear lead. So I'm not sure that's a positive. I'm not sure that's indicative that Mariette is exactly sound and improving. Mariette comes here on grass, takes play because the horse was a turf winner for that maiden score and just runs atrociously. So another black mark against Mariette, who did redeem herself somewhat on July the 8th there. I'll give her that. And she's back at 11 days here. Silva likes to run him back on reasonably short rest. So maybe that indicates she's sound, Mariette. And the track man thought that the pace that she set was pretty torrid on June the 12th. So we'll give her a little bit of extra credit for that. Mariette, I think, wants the lead. I think she's got a better chance to get it going 6 panels in here than she did last time with that 5.5. It was won by a deep closer and did have some other speeds in there for Mariette. And I'm also thinking the 6 furlong distance is going to be good for her because the long 2-turn sprints at Charlestown proved maybe a bridge too far for her. And last time at 5.5, she couldn't get the lead, which I think she does want and does covet at this stage of her career. So maybe 6 is going to be perfect. But I don't like the way she ran when she was claimed in comparison to her previous effort. I don't like her grass try here at all, considering that she was a winner on the turf earlier in her career. And also, this race could be sneaky competitive up front. So she may not have a cakewalk up front on Mariette because she's going to be sent here for sure. I do like the jock change. Leon's a veteran who rarely gets a live mount and rarely wins a race and prefers to come from off the pace for whatever reason. Juan Pablo's been trying to put the guy in a winner as hard as he can. Now, Halder is a somewhat promising bug boy, it looks like to me, who is more likely to send and get speed from Mariette than the heavy-handed Leon did on July the 8th there. So just to kind of start this race from the top now, Summer Forever on the inside. And it's got to be getting fairly close to post time, maybe 4 or 5 minutes. Summer Forever on the inside did break maiden on dirt, but they've kept this horse off dirt as much as possible, it seems like. He's had a couple of tune-ups now. But my big knock would be this horse has absolutely no speed. Well, could get some setup if Summer Forever is a mind to rally at a shorter 6 furlong distance here and comes to life in a big hurry off to desultory trips since return to the races. Never knew Becky is Sexy. Becky is Sexy is one of those horses that ran shorter last couple of times, each of them 5/8 engagements. So back out to 6 furlongs. You could be looking at a heavy pace factor. She was in front going 6 furlongs the first 3 calls on June the 7th and fought back and forth for the lead in kind of a fast paced, at least to the first call, 5.5 furlong affair and the start before. I don't like her stamina at all. I think she's a quitter. I think she's a filthy little quitter. And also, Pan Am Racing has been the kiss of death for Team Ramjeet. They've single-handedly just dragged Tina Ramjeet's win rate down during what's otherwise been an exceptional season for Team Ramjeet. But Pan Am Racing has just been bad, really, really bad. A downward pull on Team Ramjeet. Skipping over the 4, we come to the 5. Boogie-like, boogie something. Not a good record, but might show some speed. This is another horse that ran at a shorter distance last time in the last start at 6 furlongs was kind of a pace factor there, was boogie-like. John Brown's Will Rogers Downs horse. You know, he's winning a couple of races with those things, believe it or not. How about that horse that won the nightcap on Wednesday, who had a big chance, and I mentioned that, I think, in my pre-race, because there was a distinct possibility of a meltdown. And I think my exact words about that 13-1 winner were long shot winners rarely repeat. And this one doesn't have a lot of cred and could even bounce. But man, the race shape is there. And so was the grain. What was that horse's name? 92 or 99 or something like that? Number 6, Heavenly Lady. I can't much entertain the likes of her. Highway Robbery, number 7, a Burton Sip entrant who was 105-1 last time. Isn't that special? And number 9, Our Candy, a horse who did get the lead, going 6 panels for a higher claiming price back on May the 4th. But that was a classier racing name only. It was a really bad field. And I don't think Our Candy is necessarily a real strong speed factor off the fractions laid down in that 6 furlong race, even if Our Candy did break maiden from just behind the pace at 4.5 furlongs and at 6. And this is an important distinction. You see horses like Our Candy that might be able to sit back a little bit at 4.5 or whatever abbreviated dash they might happen to succeed at. But you run them 6 furlongs, and if they don't get the lead, then they can take a hike. I think Our Candy is very much that kind of horse. And on the outsiders, I'm going to go over and take a look at the odds while we keep talking here. Yeah, they're coming onto the track right now, and that is the 2-horse. And that's Tina Ramsey with her hair up in a bob. Kind of a tallish girl with red hair. Her dad had red hair. And I know him pretty well. Craig Huxell was a master horseman, so she learned her training skills legitimately for sure. She can be a little prickly, though, to deal with when you work in the racing office. Tough girl. And up to no nonsense, believe me. Not the friendliest of persons when you work as a racing official. I don't mean it as a knock. I'm just being honest with you guys. Our parents were just a little bit reclusive. Maybe I want to put it like that. A little suspicious of people that intruded into their barn and stuff, as a lot of good horsemen are. I'm going to step aside for the post spread. Then we'll talk about number 10, Matoli's Secret, just a little bit, not a whole lot. Jay Bernardini with a 1-2 punch in here, like standard 2 at you. He's got Our Candy, who's got speed. Our Candy is being supported, and in fact, is third favorite at 4-1. I guess they like the glass drop, and all is forgiven off the lousy turf effort. Gets back to dirt as Our Candy, and went well at 6 panels on May the 4th. But it was not a fast-paced race. Our Candy needs the lead. It was grossly inflated because that's a bad, really bad route horse that won that off the bench. Don't compress. So I don't like her here. Our Candy. Interesting choice of riders. Arroyo, who's kind of caught Jay's eye and is riding at a 33% clip for Jay. And then Kevin Gonzalez, who didn't get a lot of mounts for Jay, but wins some races for Jay occasionally. Gets to call him Matoli's Secret on the outside here. Matoli's Secret. I'm sorry, this is Terry Crago. My bad. Not a coupling. I don't know why I thought that. I had it stuck in my head. Terry Crago gets his horse in from Indy and wins races with Indy shippers. Some of those state bred races are tougher than you think at Indiana Downs, and this race is not a bad spot for somebody to rally. Maybe a fresh-legged cutback route horse can do that, but only part of the exacta twice from 17 starts. I don't like the little layup from November until May and then off again, another little layup worth a couple of months here. I think she's been scratched too, is she not, since her last race? But what is up with wavering her for $15,000 and then throwing her right in for 4,000 next time to the post? Something must have went awry, huh? In the running of that race, because she was even in trouble there. Wavered, in trouble, and yet takes the Panhandle plunge tonight. It's almost like this is not going according to plan for Team Matoli's Secret. I can tell you, though, that other than effort for 54 buyers, state bred or not at Indy, those races can't come up tough. But I'm going back 13 months to find that. So I can make a couple of positive comments about Matoli's Secret, but a lot more negative. But it's that kind of race, folks. 4-5 on Mariette, who I do make the likeliest winner. But what's the big deal? Because Mariette's going to be 3-5, 1-2, or some silly short price. And I think the pace again could be sneaky competitive up front and not necessarily all that Mariette friendly. So yeah, I make her the likeliest winner. I don't like the chances of anybody in here to beat her. There's nobody I can single out and point to and say, now here's your value. But I would not have a hard time envisioning her defeat either. So I think I'm going to go to Pasadena here. And as far as the second race goes, guys, which scratched down to just four horses in there. I can't say much that's going to illuminate you, except I make it the 2 or the 10, probably the 10, but they're both going to be short odds anyways. I just don't see much to hold to wedge much of a profit from the first couple of races, and I'm probably going to pass them. In fact, I am. Do you guys put much stock in the gallop outs? Is it a negative that most of the field passed her just shortly after the wire? Because she sure dominated the running and did not perform as if Juan Pablo and Tijuana Stables were going to have to eat that claim from big heavy boy Anthony Ferrier. Wow, Mary at she's the likeliest to win, no question about it. The only reservation I had was there was some other speed in the race. Turned out she was the speed. And then when you get speed chasing speed recipe for somebody to close for second, it was the cutback course, Summer Forever, which made some sense. Had one maiden on dirt. And again, you got the likes of Becky is Sexy and Boogie Like and R Candy and horses that want the lead can't get it from Mariette. They're going to pout. They're going to take their toys. They're going to fatigue. They're going to go home. And somebody's going to come clonking up for second, which Summer Forever did. I didn't see what the exacta paid, but couldn't have been too tough to hit. Uninspiring action from the place where the action peaks, guys. And more of the same coming up for the next hour or so because two of the upcoming turf races, off-turf races, I should say, have been scratched down to four. Mere four-horse affairs. And the other off-turf race, which is not scratched down quite that short, includes a horse named Aurora's Music, who's almost certainly going to win it and is almost certainly going to be something like 2-5. And I kid you not, Aurora's Music, there's got a couple of fours coming up, and then you got a probable 2-5 winner. Be still my heart. And I'm driving off my viewers. I shouldn't, but I have no filter between my mind and my mouth. And I say what I mean, and I mean what I say. Second race, you know what? Announcers hate short fields because it's harder for them to get their cadence down, their timing, and they got to editorialize and fill in a lot of gaps. It's one of Pete's talents, Peter Bear. I think Pete loves the opportunity to be honest with you about it. I can kind of get his point, though, at the point of some announcers, because, man alive, I just have four horses here to talk about. Have any of you guys ever heard, before we even get to this, the Saltery affair? And not just four horses, but to add insult to injury here, this is a maiden race, a maiden claimer for fillies and mares, and they are just woeful, these horses. I mean, they're really bad. The four we have, three of them were combined 0 for 50. Yeah, 0 for 50. A combined 0 for 50. Does that make it a simple matter of let's take the horse that's not a proven loser? And this reasoning rarely works in Mountaineer maiden claimers. Crafty lawyer, maybe. Yeah, maybe. We'll get to that in a minute, though. Have any of you guys ever had an issue with water under your dryer? This befuddled my plumber, the ex-jock, Lucy Hernandez. I call him St. Lucy because he goes around helping people. And he's just a jack of all trades, a really good plumber. And he plumbed out my house, put the plumbing in. We had a new house built about 3 years ago. And I called Lucy in and he looked and he was really flummoxed by this water under my dryer. And Lucy finally concluded the dryer's faulty and it's leaking under there. And then I called in the guy, George McIntosh, who's a master builder, contractor, and who built my house and is familiar with every aspect of a home's guts and inner workings, obviously. George McIntosh. And George's opinion was my only problem was the exhaust hose behind the dryer was kinked up. So he unkinked it. And whereas Lucy recommended I go buy a new dryer, and I respect Lucy's opinion, George said, not so fast. Slow your roll down, Mark. I don't think you're going to need to purchase a new dryer. Let me unkink this hose, and then I think you're going to be good. So we went outside, and it's blowing hot air out the vent as it is supposed to. And since then, knock on wood, I haven't had any leakage, any puddles under my dryer. If any of you guys ever experienced similar, I don't think it's common at all to have water under your dryer. Whatever. So the second race, I'm getting ahead of myself here. The second race is maiden claimer. Pigeon K on the inside. Christopher Logston's having a decent year, but not with horses like Pigeon K, who was 0 for 19. I will give the Pigeon one thing. The Pigeon at least made the lead on one occasion long ago in a galaxy far, far away. And speed can be lethal in off-turf races. Pigeon K was third last time. The problem is that wasn't an off-turf race. That was a turf race. And 5 of Pigeon's 6 placings have been on the greensward. That's the classy way. You say turf, correct, guys? Yeah, that's the classy way that you say it. Third start a cycle, whatever she's got, she's probably going to show. But it seems like when she's in the easiest and should run the best is when she disappoints the most. Like, check out that 3. 3. I'll hold up fingers here for you. 3 Buyer Fig when she loses by 14 lengths. In a maiden mile, $4,000 claimer at 5-2 last October. So she ain't much horse. I mean, that's just how it is. Moving on down the line, number 2, Party Queen. Party Queen, a lot of maiden special races there on the form. She's been in for a claiming price before. 12.5 is probably the bottom at Gulfstream Park, and she was way up the track there. Party Queen, who's only been part of the Exacta one time from 18 starts. Party Queen's got some distant thirds and fourths, though, with the kind of speed, figs, and performances that could well win this. The problem is we haven't seen anything like that from her in either outing here. Okay, she hated turf. I'll toss that one. And then what happened next time when she loses by 25 lengths? This is a class drop. She does get Parker. Man, everything this guy runs, though, just goes backwards this year. And up until this year, I think he was a halfway respectable horseman. But look at what he's done this year, what's become of him and his record. 6 for 136. I tell you. Pretty runner. My old friend Randy Blackhurst, who worked with us in the racing office at Mountaineer and was an esteemed judge, a steward at the Meadows for a long time. Man, Randy keeps some badass horses around. Just bad. Did I say bad? I mean bad horses. I think it's kind of like a hobby for him at this point. I think he just enjoys running horses. Crafty Lawyer on the outside. Eddie Clouston gets another free lunch tonight. Ratings handicap. Written again as an extra to include. And I almost can't believe this. You can't make this stuff up. Larimar, who was in again against Paul Murray, opposite the crowd. Waterworks, who was scratched. Benita Vita, who's up from $4,000 lifetime races. And there's legitimate $25,000 claimer Larimar with her 21 wins, her $500,000 in earnings, and her 2 consecutive wins in these funky ass ratings handicap races by like 16 and a half total lengths. So going to do the same thing to this field. And she's never even run for a specified claiming price to get starter allowance eligible to come back and beat up on these same weaklings week after week after week. These races are hardly a recommendation for the ratings handicap system. And we'll explore that in more depth a little bit later on, guys. But now let's get back to the scintillating action that we like to call tonight's second race from the mountain. Good time to check on the comments? Yeah, it's a good time to check on the comments here. Just 2 minutes to post, which means we got a long time. 4 to 5 on the outside horse. Should cover all my bases here. Crafty Lawyer has never been around a ground. 7/8 on the turf and went okay at the 2 turns, which might indicate some stamina. Although more seasoning is almost always needed to win at 2 turns on the mountain. Maine. St. Saratoga, guys, was 3rd on dirt. But that's pretty faint praise to run a 19 Buyer. And Linda Rice, who was part owner on this horse, said, I don't think so. No more for me. Good luck to you, King Clouston. So Crafty Lawyer is now a Mountaineer horse who's not a proven loser anyways, who's got a placing on dirt, who's no longer going to be hooked wide out in the 10 post with this spate of scratches, and who's no longer going to be a palatable price either. We're talking 4 to 5 on Crafty Lawyer's only dirt race resulted in a 19 Buyer speed fig. So it'll seem easy after the fact. Either Party Queen will win it, and somebody's going to be thinking, yeah, man, yeah. All those maiden special weight tries, finally had a claimer, and ran some halfway respectable Buyers in Charleston maiden special weight races earlier this year, late last year, up around 40. Or else Pigeon K's going to win it, and somebody's going to say, yeah, man, Logston's having a good season. And she was the speed, baby, the speed. Coming off a half-decent performance, or else Crafty Lawyer's going to win it, and somebody's going to say, man alive, Mark, why did you not? I ask you earnestly, label that horse the Lock of Modern Civilization, because she was only 0 for 2. She was a competitive third in her only 2-turn try, and she's in against 3 foes who are professional maidens and a combined 0 for 50. So it's all going to make sense The problem is, it's not going to make complete sense until about 3 or 4 minutes from now. Hey, I'm going to pass it. And we'll get to the comments after this race, I promise. Let's do some of the comments now because they're not exactly moving quickly to load there. Number 4, Pretty Runner, lowest in the daily double. Will Page, are you kidding me? You got to be joking me. No. Is that even possible? That is unfathomable to me. And my man Lyric says, Kenny, this is a single family, sits on 2 acres, no neighbors, washer here. Yeah, my neighbors are a good ways away, Kenny. My man Todd McCullough says, can't wait for Sunday nights. And Mark P. commentary. I live for you, my friend. And me and Todd, man, we go way back. Very, very good friends. You know me back when? I had to pick a winner to go to McDonald's. Good evening, Michael, Jacob, Kenny, Scott, Norman, a.k.a. Lyrics. My man Todd, Hojin Lee, good dude there. Wayne's a friend of mine. Panda, 33. Good evening, Marky. Hope you had a good weekend. Just finished watching the World Cup final. Yawn. I was ready to get Spain because they're like anti-America, right? I can be jingoistic here on my own YouTube channel, correct? I'm not going to do politics, I promise, because I don't want to alienate anybody or make anybody feel uncomfortable here in the dungeon. I will not do politics, but Spain, not America's friend. So I was going to root for Argentina. Isn't Messi like the GOAT in place for Argentina? Jason Keller says, I'm out of booze. That's an unfortunate set of circumstances, my man. And Travis, father of the official Dungeon Twins, is actually going to stop by with some pictures sometime this evening because he's headed back from some kind of a bowling tournament. This man lives for bowling tournaments and organized youth activities. Good on him, huh? I would not dream of betting on this woeful affair. I mean, I'll bet bad horses, and I'll take a crumb if I think some short-priced horse is an absolute cinch. But these aren't just really bad horses. These bad horses have come together to form an inscrutable race, and that I will not countenance. Back afterwards, guys. I'm amazed they had time to run both those replays and still get in the rest of the card. That's like watching the fucking Lord of the Rings trilogy. That's a minute and 52 seconds of my life I'll never get back. I will never get back, and I can't unsee what I just saw. Amazing display of lack of thoroughbred talent there. Put them all on your permanent pay no attention list forever and ever and ever. The money ferreted out the winner, made the winner 4-5. Big deal. She had a big chance, I guess. Still can't believe Pretty Runner was the lowest double. That's going to be faulty information I got there, correct? Hey, the guy that just broke the mile record, and it's a rarely run distance anymore because they go in meters, but this guy wanted to run a mile because he said he could break the record that stood for like, I don't know, 30 years or something like that. I think he ran faster than that race went, correct? Yeah, I think so. Oh, man, those were bad horses. Bad, bad, bad. Really bad. I wish I could unsee that race. Third race was lined up to go 7/8 with all good intentions on Mountaineers. 7/8, well manicured turf course. It was not to be because we got some rain yesterday. Not steady downpour all day, but a couple of pretty hard periods of rain. This is a never three life for fillies and mares, 15,000 claiming, and we've got a couple of horses that drew off. They also eligible. I think one of them is an absolute stand up because this is a really weak field. As a lot of them are once they come off the turf. Aurora's Music. I like the barn for one thing. I know this guy's over 10 on the year, Jeff Zook, but he knows what he's doing. And Aurora's Music last time stumbled start in kind of a deep field in Ohio. That's why Aurora's Music was 12-1 off a pretty snappy performance. Aurora's Music actually went well to miss by just a length with a 67 Buyer at Mahoney back in December. That race makes her ruffian and regret both rolled into one versus these foes. Aurora's Music. And then she gets over to the grass. And boy, this is really a good race there. On May the 18th is Aurora's Music is trying to close from sixth, third from last, 5 back. And that's not the profile of 5H turf races here at the mountain. They're one up close to the pace almost always. And Zen Nation, I think Zen Nation's been part of the exacta like 10 out of 12 lifetime tries or something. She's a really good horse. Is Zen Nation there? So big performance from Aurora's Music. That was first time off the bench. I don't know if the next one was a bounce or if the field was just too deep. She did stumble start pretty badly, and I pulled up the video on that. But I'm looking at the bulk of her form and just having a hard time imagining her losing this race. Aurora's Music, but this is not going to be lost on the Winpool movers and shakers. She's going to be all over Aurora's Music here, like you wouldn't believe. If you agree with me, just how likely it is that this filly goes back to the barn as an ever 4, then your heart will hurt. You will shed tears at how low these odds go at the 11th hour here. Let's see where they're at right now, okay? Timmy, in from Connecticut. Welcome, my good man, Andy Schnell, good friend of mine, back with us. And somebody named D-Rest 911. The AE good enough for me is a Yoshida with Gomez. Yeah, when she closed on the turf, they're good enough for me, just to refer to your comment. Mr. D-Rest 911. That was a closer's race. Looking back when she missed by just a head, her big performance here on May the 18th, that was a total closer's race, won by a bad horse, and it set up for her late move. I was a little surprised she was able to win subsequent to that. Now, she did it, but that was 2 turns on synthetics. On dirt, she's 0 for 13. It does not have the kind of speed to be much of a factor. These 7/8 races, when they flip from turf to dirt, they put a big emphasis on speed and a priority on early position. I don't think she's good enough for me, just to kind of make a little funny there, just a little joke, you know what I mean? I think it's just the wrong spot at the wrong time for her. Good, sir. I'm going to see what the odds look like right now on good enough for me. And on Aurora's Music, more to the point. Yeah, Aurora's Music's even money. He's not going to stay even money. He's going to go a lot lower. Good enough for me. He's 11-1. I don't like good enough for me necessarily to even be second here. For second, I'd be looking at number 2, Sippin' Speed, or number 4, Brody's Cat. And it's slim pickings once you get past Aurora's Music. Sippin' Speed does have a couple of dirt wins this year. One of them going 6 furlongs, and that was her finest hour and tied for her best ever speed fig, career speed fig. And she kind of hits her apex at the pre-stretch call, the 6 furlong call when she runs a route. So not a bad distance for her, but she has kind of lost her mojo a little bit. Now, she had been a synthetic winner, so she was supposed to do a little better, I think, than she did on June the 24th, and then comes back to Mountaineer and just does not fire there at all. And most disturbing, she loses some 7 lengths from the first call to the finish. And at 5.5, she's supposed to be a better finisher than that. I dig the jock change from Barrios over to Arroyo. And it won't take a lot to be second here. It won't take a lot at all. I think a really strong candidate to be second is number 4, Brody's Cat, who actually took early money. And that early money's evaporated now with the influx on now 3-5 Aurora's Music, who could go literally 1-5 here. I kid you not. Brody's Cat was on the turf 3 times and wins on turf. So at that point, they had to be thinking, okay, we found a grass horse, except not so fast, because Brody's Cat then flipped over to dirt and wins by 11 lengths and up the speed for Gandy considerably, and follows that up with a second place finish, not against 2 lifers, not against 3 lifers, but in a other than a higher condition and allowance race there. Brody's Cat affirmed that 11-length win and proved that she can run a number without the lead, without some kind of a soft lead, which was the case on September the 23rd with that wide margin victory. Now she has got a couple of races under her belt. Last time on the turf, and again, when you want to run from 15 lengths back at 5/8 on the turf in Mountaineer, and they're going 57, it's not going to work. It's not going to happen. And I would say top to bottom, that was a better field than this. It was a key race. The 2-3 finishers both came back to score. So I would respect Brody's Cat a lot as a potential second place finisher here to Aurora's Music. In fact, that would be my main exacta punch. Aurora's Music over Brody's Cat. I think Sippin' Speed has also got a chance to be second here. We'll talk a bit about some of the others. I'm going to step aside right now for the post parade out of habit because I used to mute my mic while Pete did the post parade. Nobody mutes me here, but I'm going to mute myself so you guys can watch him come onto the track. Number 5, Uno Roca, claimed by an outfit I like, not the owner, not him at all. I hope he's not doing his own training, but Blankenship, pretty sharp horseman, and wants to sit there and claim something instead of go buy something, I think, in a lot of cases, because then you got to pay the shippage to get here and stuff like that. Uno Roca was regressing by the second, though, by the nanosecond, getting slower and slower and slower. after a promising 2 in a row on synthetics. Maybe that's the key, synthetics, huh? I'm just not feeling Sprinter off even this horse's best lines. Number 6, Black Betty, straight up stole a turf race on a big lead there on June the 2nd. Is unplaced from 6 dirt tries. Did show a step of sprint speed there on dirt a couple of times. I don't know if you can couple that with a two-turn grass romp and make her any kind of a contender, much of a factor at all, Black Betty. My Daniela, Randy Blackhurst's other horse, I guess he likes to run them both the same night. A lot of shipping outfits. They'll call and make entries. And if they don't get them both in, they'll pull the entry on the horse whose race is going to go. Used to irritate me when I was racing assistant race secretary. I also worked as racing secretary for long periods because these shipping barns want to run too because they don't want to take the trouble to come here and pay for a hotel and pay the shipping and all that stuff and put their time in to run just one horse. So they will enter 2 or 3. And if I'm not getting them all in, they'll call and pull the entry on the race you are using. And I used to get so mad. I used to get so irate at that. And I would tell them, that's fine. I don't mind you pulling your entry at the 11th hour on me because your other horse's race is not going to be used. But just tell my entry clerk, give me a heads up when you enter in the morning that you're going to do that. And really, you're not allowed to do it anyways because technically that's a provisional entry. When you say, I'm only going to leave the entry in if you use my other race too. That is called the provisional entry, and that's against the rules. But I used to tolerate it as long as they gave me a heads up front and didn't get me stuck using a race that I didn't know I was going to get a horse pulled from at the 11th hour. Number 10, My Lucky Day. My Lucky Day, kind of a clever claim on the part of Tijuana Stables and Juan Pablo Silva. Halted from a race that they had to be pretty sure she was going to lose first time off the bench, plus it was dirt. And then a 4-time winner. They knew she had a 2-life, 3-life, and 4-life condition. An open company, this West Virginia bred. She ran a good number on dirt on June the 29th. I don't think it was for real, though, because she came back and just did not do well at all. Also, I don't think she's got 6 furlong stamina on dirt. I really don't. I think she hangs going 6 furlongs. On turf, stamina is another issue. She can go 7, 7.5, but on dirt, I think that she hits the peak of her kick at about 5 or 5.5 furlongs. And I'm not at all sure just how good a dirt horse she is off that most recent race there. I was never sold on her dirt ability. And I'm not sure now that June 29th number was for real, that 60 buyer, dirt buyer, or maybe more of a mirage. She is not my first option here, even to be second. It's possible, but then not my first option. My 2 possibilities to be second to the aforementioned Aurora's Music, who's 3-2 right now. But I think that's a pipe dream to boot. I think she's going to go down. Would be the 12-4 combination and maybe a backup on a 12-2. Good luck to you guys. I'm going to watch the board intently here and decide what I'm going to do. One way or another, I'm going to bet some money on Aurora's Music. Well, the only good thing about that race, from my perspective, at least the perspective of my own personal wagering account, was given the long delay, I'm thinking maybe the horses are out of sorts and unsaddled, resaddled. So I canceled half my wager. Still bet a decent sum on the 12th horse there, but not as much as I was going to. So I saved half my bet. That's the only good part. I don't think she really fired anywhere near her best game there. And I was surprised the 10 horse came up that big, to be really honest about it. The 10 horse ran huge. I think this is one of those nights when the Silva stage was just going to run right off the screen. You saw it in the first, and you kind of watched it there as well. And some players are skeptical on evenings like this when Silva can't lose and his horses sprout wings. But it happens. He can be streaky. And that was a huge performance then. He's making money, boy, with that horse over from Mike Baird. And she's better on turf to boot. I think she's considerably better on turf. So she can get back on the grass. And she still has 4 life condition in tow. Does my lucky day. Disappointing run from Aurora's Music. I knew that she wasn't firing halfway down the backstretch because she should have been much more alert there. She's got the natural speed to get a stranglehold on that field by the time I bank into the 4 turn. When she did not good, not a good thing. And that outfit continues to be atypically cold, the Jeff Sook barn. I hope the jock's okay. I guess got transported. The 2 closest hospitals, one of them is in Weirton. My wife is an RN at Weirton Medical Center. And that is about 25 minutes from Mountaineer. And the other is East Liverpool Hospital, which is across the state line. I think the jocks, when they're injured, get transported there. And that would be about 15 minutes via ambulance. And then if they're seriously hurt, then they are further transported very often to Pittsburgh. So let's hope the jock not seriously injured. 4th race was supposed to be 7 furlongs on the turf. My man Travis is in town and brought me beautiful pictures of his twins, Katie and Charlie. Love those girls. They were the official Mountaineer twins. We got to dub them the Dungeon Twins now. These gals. Good to see Travis, a friend of mine. Haven't seen him in a while. Okay, so this is 6 furlongs on that Fast Mountain Main, and this is a 75 claimer wide open style with just 4 going to the post. Number 6, Uncle Truly. I think we can truly pitch him out unceremoniously just right off the bat, right? 5 wins, all on alternative footing, and his 1 dirt race was straight up ugly. They never put him back on the stuff. It was so ugly, in fact, for Uncle Truly. And when they tell you who a horse is by never running on dirt, believe them, okay? Worst case scenario, they can go back to the barn and somebody can ask the handler, hey, where'd you run? And he can say, we ran 4th. And a lot of times that's the way they spin it too, believe me. Other horses' handlers, and sometimes the conditioners too. So I can't like Uncle Truly here at all. Plus, Uncle was off a couple of months from April until June, and then loses by 18 lengths at 3-2. So I don't think he's even going well right now when it comes to his favorite kind of footings, Uncle Truly. So we toss him out. I don't like Grimes here either. I'm kind of working backwards here. Grimes was claimed for the 75-2 back there, and it was sort of kind of a closer-friendly race, but I'm not sure Grimes should have lost 4 lengths down the backstretch and performed in such a spotty manner on the stretch out there. This is a synthetic beast, Grimes for sure. I don't see sprinter and I don't see dirt when I look at his record. And when I look at his past performances there, plus he regressed, it looks like, off the claim there. I know that was a ratings handicap last time at a non-claimer. I'm not sure that was a quality race, though, at all. In fact, I don't think it was on July the 7th. So I think we've narrowed it down to Breezer and Quistmer pretty quickly there. Breezer got off synthetics and on the dirt for the first time from Gulfstream. And Jeff Fletcher buys and brings some decent horses up sometimes from Florida and gets them off the synthetics, over to dirt, over to turf, and sometimes they flourish. Think about Mr. Chilly Willie is a good case in point. So Breezer romps first time out. and runs a sprightly fig too on May the 4th. That was about a 75 claimer, I'd say quality wise, but it was the number and the manner of victory that were so impressive. In fact, impressive enough that I'm a little puzzled by his subsequent efforts there. I thought they'd found this new thing on dirt. Maybe not so much off the next couple of tries. Does drop in class, and this is a good spot for the ship to be righted for Breezer because the lead's there, maybe for the taking. Because a lot of his races are 5s and 5.5s on his page there. And the first time they got him out to 6 furlongs. Breezer strolls right to the lead, so speed often kills in these races drawn up for 7/8 on turf when they flip to 6 furlongs on the mountain main. And Breezer is probably the speed here. I think Breezer could have his hands full, though, with Quistmer. And I'd love to tell you which of these horses is probably going to be favored, but I'm not so sure about that. As I'm looking at the board, and Uncle Truly is actually 4-5. What is up with that? Off 2-turn Tampa turf races? Back during the winter? Get out of here. Sometimes horses are like Prescott and like that synthetic mix take to the mountain main. But sluggish in a lot of his route races to start with and going 6 furlongs here. An avoided claim last time, the dreaded voided claim. So somebody wanted him there for 13, couldn't get him. And they're ringing the dinner bell again saying, if you want to drive a Mountaineer, you can have him for the bargain sum of $7,500. I hate this horse. I hate him. I'll still hate him if he wins. Doesn't matter because he's not going to be 4-5. That's an illusion, guys. Quistmer moves from synthetics over to dirt, and I think has a big chance here, Quistmer. Quistmer was part of the pace last time at a closer-friendly clip, the horse that he went head-and-head with and dueled with, just a half length in arrears there until the pace call. Never gets fronted. So there's that as an excuse for Quistmer. And in his previous, it looks like he laid down some decent fractions. Maybe synthetics are not his thing. I can tell you this. When Aragata is either the former conditioner or the current owner on a horse that switches to and ships to Jaybird at Mountaineer, that horse is almost always live. And I would assume the same from Quistmer, whose last dirt race was a front running second at Tampa on May the 1st there. The only issue would be this is a front running route horse. You back him up to 6 furlongs and maybe Breezer, a proven speed commodity, sprinting, gets the upper hand on Quistmer early. But then again, Breezer regressed in his next couple of dirt races after that win in an unbecoming manner and makes me kind of wonder if maybe Quistmer might be the one you want here. Because what's the worst Quistmer can be down the backstretch here? Second. So if Breezer gets the lead, then Quistmer's going to be tracking him, right? And I don't think you're going to see a lot of value on either of these horses because that plan, Uncle Truly, I think it's got to disappear, doesn't it? There's no way in the world they can save in money. And that money's going to move to Quistmer and Breezer here, I think. And there's a look at Breezer by Medaglia d'Oro. Him is Breezer. And Quistmer by the good horse Nyquist, the son of Uncle Mo. Woody Stevens trained. He was so precocious. It was crazy, Uncle Mo. Woody was a great horseman. What did he win? Like 4 or 5 straight Belmont Stakes? Yeah, 5. Travis is holding up a hand there. Woody used to say bodacious things and make these outlandish statements about his horses. I think he said Uncle Mo was the greatest horse he ever had his hands on, and all kinds of superlatives he heaped on Uncle Mo. He liked to pump his own horses up in the press, Woody Stevens. So stubborn money still there on Uncle Truly at even money there, a coin flip price. There's no way this can stay this way though. Let's just track him from his last 3 or 4 starts. 9-5, well beaten third, and then in his next one, he is a non-factor on the Tampa turf course at a suitable distance and classed up correctly. After which he is rested too much. That's a telltale. Something wasn't right with Uncle Truly. And at this point, we get a voided claim and 18.5 lengths worth of losses at a 3-2 price. And now he's in for $7,500 tonight. No, not for me. I think it's pretty simple, folks. I think you decide between Breezer and Quismer. And if you favor Breezer, as maybe the quicker the pair to first call, then I get it. Although I think I might have more faith that Quismer fires here, given the Aragata factor. And to get him off the synthetics, too. And to zeroing in on his most recent dirt race. And interestingly enough, this will be the third start out of 4 tries since being claimed that he's been spotted higher than what he was taken for there. Sometimes horses like Quismer flash sprint speed. Sometimes they don't. So I'm going to sign off until after the race and watch the board really closely to see where the dissipation of Uncle Truly's support ends up, on Breezer or on Quistmer. All right, buddy. Good to see you always.
You too, thank you.
Well, that's the first time in a while I can recall a horse winning that I said I absolutely hated, and I did. I did. I mean, 2 turns, voided claim last time, non-dirt form, and plus, since it was supposed to be 2 turns to start with this race, when it goes to 6, somebody strong's going to get an easy lead there, and Uncle Truly's got to pass him. I did not like Uncle Truly. You could run the race another 50 times. I still would not like Uncle Truly. I'm a little curious though. Why so much support for Uncle Truly there? It's almost like somebody knew something. Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe somebody who's a better handicapper than me. Maybe that was what was going on there. But there's no way in the world I come up with Uncle Truly in that race. I will say this. I assume the dead rail boogeyman, which reared its head here on Wednesday for the first time, maybe all season, would be banished by some range yesterday to bind the surface together. That might not be the case, though, because my lucky day circled around him like a Rossi, and then Uncle Truly just blows right by Quistmer, and Quistmer did drop down to the inside. I'm not looking for excuses for my top pick because Uncle Truly certainly ran much better than I expected. But I wonder if all of that negative rail thing that was pretty apparent Wednesday has completely disappeared, given the fact that it's been 4 days since then, and that we had some rain yesterday, which is usually the key to binding it together so it doesn't get loose and slow going down close to the inside, guys. Thank you for showing up, Diane. Glad you could make this scene. Hope you can hear me now, because I cut the sound during the race, you know. I'm not one of those guys. You know what? I can't show the Mountaineer feed. And 1 or 2 other guys, maybe more, do what I do and break the races down amidst the races. And they'll try to do some half-ass call. Well, there's Blue Boy on the outside and Stellar Miss moving up between horses. No, I'm not doing it. I'm not a freaking race caller. And I'm not going to pretend that I am one. I'm not going to call the race. And I know it's inconvenient for you guys to flip back and forth between your feed and my commentary. And I appreciate you going to the trouble. I really do. But I'm not going to call the race. I'm not doing that. I never wanted to be a race caller. It never occurred to me. I remember one time when the backup was not on alert and too far away, and Pete took ill. I had to go home on some kind of an emergency. They asked me if I'd call the races, and I said, no. Let's go Keeneland. Keeneland, of course, went almost forever before they finally installed a race caller and announcer. The races were silent down there. I wasn't going to do that. Because you know what? It's so much harder than it seems to call a horse race. And if you're not practiced at it, I would have taken criticism for the ineptitude of my calls. And nobody would have stopped to think. You don't have to be a genius to be a plumber. You just have to know how to plumb. And I didn't know how to plumb. I'd never done plumbing. And I would have looked like an idiot if I would have attempted to call the races. So I wasn't doing it. I just wasn't going to do it. It's never been one of my Walter Mitty fantasies either to call a horse race. Fifth race, 4.5 furlongs. This is a maiden 4,000 for fillies and mares. So I don't think we're talking about a lot of stamina. 3,200 claiming, in fact, the new low at Mountaineer. This is 32. These are maidens. These are fillies, the weaker sex. And we're only going 4.5. So these connections are trying to compensate for a woeful lack of stamina on the part of these fillies for sure. Mamcross on the outside. This really surprises me. Runs back here in 5 days, was in the entries for this one before going to the post there on July the 14th. Mamcross. I'm surprised she's sound enough to do this because she was the bad test horse that sidelined King Eddie Clouston there. Mamcross, some kind of a serious substance, I think. DQ'd from purse money and then comes back and could not duplicate that effort clean and sober. Mamcross. I was probably short first time back because Stansbury was keeping the seat warm for Eddie, but the horses weren't really ready first time back. And then next time just couldn't run 5.5. You short her up to 4.5 here. And she gets the lead, which on paper is probably going to happen. And then who's going to pass her? This race is not exactly loaded with passing gears, correct? No, it really isn't. You got a lot of speeds in here. Rosie Ann Rules on the inside. Juan Pablo Silva was second at Santa Anita a couple of times, 3 times, and second at Del Mar. You sure didn't see that horse here, though, on December the 7th, right? It does 7-5. And it's been laid up since then, too. It was away from August until December, and I get resting the horse after December because that's when Mountaineer went down. But kind of a belated return to the races since the Mountain came back into action on April the 12th. So this is more than 3 months later. So this horse must have needed every bit of that rest. And that's on the heels of that August until December break there for Rosie Ann Rules, who consistently from top to bottom, not only has a 1 post, which might not be a good place to be tonight, but also not as fast as Mamcross. Not nearly as fast as Mamcross, at least on paper. Echo Vision, the 4-horse, usually gets the lead and could be an impediment for Mamcross through the early stages. But Mamcross topped this one on June the 16th and had a 1.5 on Echo Vision by the time they banked around that far turn. So you got to like Mamcross, and that's speed on speed mano a mano there, right? Echo Vision's chance to shine was, I think, on May 25th in a 5H race. It was taken off turf, and she was setting the pace and still looked strong at the furlong grounds, and then kind of collapsed to a fellow Speed who became a closer. You know, Build-A-Bear, the Build-A-Bear thing for kids where you go build your own bear, your own stuffed bear, whatever. This race has so much weight speed, it could be create a closer. They could make a closer out of somebody that's never closed or passed anybody, ever, at least for a piece of it, right? If the question has become who's second to Mamcross, right? And that's got to be a silly short price. Mamcross is 8-5. I don't think you're going to see 8-5 there on Mamcross when all the money's in. Come a Waltzing. Could this be the creative closer horse? First time on dirt, second time on dirt. First time on dirt was just 6 lengths back at the furlong grounds, trying to go 2 turns, which is tough. First time out of the box and ran a respectable 35 by or so. Might not be that bad on dirt. Come a Waltzing is going to drop back for sure. Has run nothing but 2 turns in each start of her career. But man, some of these speeds, you've got to be looking for a place to lay down here at some point, right? Speed tendencies from the 1, certainly the 4, the 8, and then the 9. So Come a Waltzing's got to be passing somebody late, at least by accident, right? Correct? Should have run better last time, though, off those Tampa turf tries. And that was a really weak 17.5. A grossly inflated maiden claimer. Bailey's Girl was a first-time starter. You never see that in maiden claimers at Mountaineer at 2 turns succeeded. Did because the field was that bad. And Sperry Chalet, the runner-up, had some ugly Charlestown Pass performances, no turf whatsoever. So Come a Waltzing should have run much better than that, off even the worst of those Tampa turf attempts. So there's that to consider before you get too dead set that Come a Waltzing's going to be 1-2 here. Is the only, certainly the strongest, and maybe the only finisher in the field. So Steve says, this is the guy who bet Stepnowski, right, because of the ski the other night. Good on you, man. You have to be degenerate to bet this. That means I will. Well understood, sir. Well understood and well said. D-Rez says Hal Noon gets class relief. How noon is now class relief. Yeah, it's a lot of class relief, that's for sure. And first time out on dirt, too. Better be able to pass, though, because she ain't getting the lead here, because at least there's some quicksters signed on for this. I'm not sure she's seasoned enough to take that dirt kick back and do it. Um, check out the other comments. Mam Crosses raced 5 days ago. My man Dave Schwabel says. Dave Schwabel says Mam Crosses raced 5 days ago. Does not show an equal race past performances. I'm not sure it's in the hard copy form either. It is in the PPs I print out because I printed them out half an hour before the show. I handicap from computer screen on Formulator. Back in the day when they would never make it in, if a horse was running back on short rest, we'd have to have it announced and post a chart somewhere upstairs for the patrons back when they used to come to the races live so they could see it. And then we'd have to announce particulars, give them to the announcer. And he would say, because it wasn't in the form back then, he'd have to say, Mam Cross raced 5 days ago on July the 14th. Mam Cross opened the lead and was second by a length and a half in a 5/8, 5.5 furlong race run in 108 4/5. And favorite odds of 1-2. So the announcer would have to recite that whole litany. And I was the guy that would give him that whole litany and who would have to pick up on this too. That's why you always run more recent editions of horses' past performances that are obtainable at time of entry. Take a worst case scenario. Horse enters that is a maiden 7 days ahead of this. Last Sunday for this Sunday. I think they're on a 7-day schedule at Mountaineer. So horse enters last Sunday and then comes back in the interim to break maiden someplace else that is no longer eligible. That's why you have, when you're in charge of eligibility. I was a czar of weights and eligibility at Mountaineer. Never missed one in 35 freaking years, a record which will never be equaled in thoroughbred racing. And I would always run completely up-to-date past performances on the horses. I wouldn't go by the hard copy form or our own proof, which I got my hands on like 10 minutes after we closed entries, because what if a horse ran after that and rendered itself no longer eligible? Pie in the face for moi. Just a little inside baseball stuff there for you guys. On the topic of eligibility, 7-5 on Mam Cross. I'm thinking more like the 1-2 that was cited last time. Final odds on Mam Cross because we're taking away 220 yards and we're only going 4.5 furlongs. And just a display of Mam Cross's normal day at the office speed is going to thwart Echovision. It's going to thwart Algebra in the Dark. It's probably going to thwart Roseanne Rules, who I doubt is ready to revert back to her rallying / stalking ways from Santa Anita circa 2023, right? So she's ready, dead ready. And better than she was off the last layup in December. Could she possibly take back behind a couple of these, angle out, and then come with some kind of a finishing punch? That's a big ask. Off the 7-5 race that we do see there, 6-5 on Mam Cross. I bet the race is going to be Mam Cross. Probably won't because I feel a 3-5 coming on. 6 horse, Come a Waltzing. I still think is mildly, a little bit, just kind of interesting. Is an exacta partner for somebody here? Mic. Got to put the mic on. $46 exact. I can't believe. And I think it was pretty obvious too. I liked it a lot to run 9 and 6, and I made that point and reiterated it beforehand after the 9 with that raw speed races. The rest of the speeds off their collective feed. Who's going to close besides the horse that has run a steady diet at 2-turn race is the 6. Just like you take your kids to Build-A-Bear, that field took the 6 horse to create a closer, come a waltzing. Plus, the only dirt try wasn't too bad in career debut for a 35 buyer, and to be just 6 lengths behind with only 220 to go in a route race. First time out of the box. My only worry was that the 6 might catch the 9. And I'm talking about beforehand. I'm not red boarding. You can rerun the video there. I'm not ecstatic. I'm happy that I fattened my betting account there. I don't root, even when I stand to make a decent score, as was the case there. It's almost like I have this superstition that if I root out loud or get too demonstrative emotionally, I'm going to tempt the gods of race and the gods of fate to spoil it all for me. One of the best friends I ever had, certainly the best handicapper I've ever known, I would say, Hollywood Bob Panconi, who was both a mentor and a student of mine. We taught each other how to handicap. And we used to hang together every night, 3-4 hours for a period of like 15 years. We were inseparable. And he would go on to become, he was a pharmacist by trade, who would become the biggest horse bettor in the greater Pittsburgh area. And that takes on a lot of territory too. And he was so superstitious about what the evil gods of fate, gods of racing, call them what you will, would do to him, that he would literally, and I've seen him do this, bet 500 on a horse's nose, wad the ticket up, discard it, walk away to try and misdirect the gods of racing to not bother to try to get his pick beat, to try to get his bet beat. And then if the horse would win, he would walk back very casually so as not to alert anybody that there was a fortune on the floor and dig through the rubble, pick his ticket up, uncrumple it, and take it to his favorite cashier. I've seen him do it a lot of times. That's how superstitious he was. And you better believe he wasn't standing there rooting during the race for the same reason I don't root. I don't want the evil, nasty, hate my guts, gods of racing to be able to read my expression and thus know where to sink the dagger. How's that for degenerate talk, folks? How is that? Can't believe that exacta paid $46. Are you kidding me? A good handicapper mentioned in the comments, the one's going to be second if the one doesn't break down. I get it. I understand. But I think that was kind of predictable because the one horse had that aborted comeback, and I laid it out too, that aborted comeback in December. There had been away, runs once, and then away again until some 3 months into our meet. And it was not a good performance in comparison to those Santa Anita outings at 7-5. Not at all. So turning the page on to the next one. I did not see that score coming on the night's card. Hated the card coming in. You never know, though. Next race, 5 furlongs. Yeah, Hollywood Bob Panconi, pharmacist by trade, and one of the best friends I ever had, man. We just hung out together every night at Old Waterford Park for, 3-4 hours. Spent more time together than most married couples. And he would churn 20,000 a day. Easy 20,000 a day he would bet. 6th race, 5 furlongs. I will bestow some of his handicapping wisdom on you guys sometime, some of his theories, some of his ideas. He was kind of unique. He was a strange bird in his own way, but a very, very cool guy. Very cool guy. Lived with his mother and had a way with the ladies. That sounds almost like a contradiction in terms, doesn't it? But he got the babes, the hot babes, and lived with his mother her entire life. No winners in 2026. Now you're intrigued, right? Now you're intrigued. No winners in 2026, 4,000 claiming we're going 5/8. And some of these horses were entered literally before they fulfilled their previous engagements to run. Like Big Effect was in here before he ran on July the 15th. I'm amazed he's coming back on 4 days rest. Silva likes to do that once in a while. And when he does, he ain't whistling Dixie. even though he's from south of Dixie. This guy's 44% when he runs him back on short rest. And Shiva also runs back. Alejandro Gomez likes to run him back, enter him back before they're even cooled out. And he went one better this time and entered Shiva before Shiva had even run on July the 13th there. The one scratch from here was scratched because the horse won and rendered himself ineligible since being entered for this. So I'm surprised some of these horses back on short rest, but it is characteristic of these outfits. Juan Pablo Silva and Alejandro Gomez. A Big Effect runs back a third time in 2 weeks. And who could have expected this on a horse that was getting slower and depreciating by the minute? Claimed for 40, loses by 22. Claimed for 5,000, loses by 24. And then in for 4,000 last time, back on 10 days rest. And if we're going to take that race at face value, it makes this horse much the one to beat, because forget the 40,000 claiming stuff and then near 300,000 in earnings. Big Effect was in a front-loaded race. There were some quick foes in there last time, and Big Effect put 4 lengths on him and then succumbs on a track which was playing in favor of wider trips there. And that winner came from behind on a night that was kind of wide closers. Remember, I laid out that bias from July the 15th, just 4 nights ago. An increasingly rare negative rail bias reared its head there and may have benefited that long shot winner to come and tag Big Effect. Now, that was a 6-furlong race, and the flip side of this kind of maneuvering at the entry box is, sure, you have less real estate to cover with a Big Effect, but you have more in the way of opposing speed to go out there and hook or front you. And so the lead may not be quite so easy to come by tonight for Big Effect, but Silva's so good on short rest like this. And it's so encouraging to me that this horse is even sound enough to run back. Given all the depreciation and all the class drops and all the virtual DNFs there. Alfie Sullivan's, he's 9. In my mind, he's 19. Never gets the lead, wants the lead. Smart coverage, very quick, but boy, did he go amiss. Smart coverage off a career effort there in June of 2024, in July of 2024. He's laid up for a year, runs one time, and then sidelined again for more than a year. I can't go there. That's the nastiest thing you can see in a horse's form, an ugly aborted comeback. So he's got some serious issues. And I think he had every chance last 2 times, especially last time. When Joe Phillips blows his doors off, Joe Phillips, not a good horse. Does not run back to that effort. Smart coverage. Could be a role player, though. Could hold Big Effect's feet to the fire and pin Big Effect right down next to the rail and take Big Effect to a place called Speed Duel City, at least for the first couple of furlongs. It's possible. Although if Big Effect holds service on the inside and is even with smart coverage into the turn, you would think Big Effect's going to open up around that far turn. Beyond the Bend could trip out well. Beyond the Bend was second last time in a reasonably fast race to an industrial strength speed horse. It was a big chalk, Courthouse Cove there. They're coming onto the track. Beyond the Bend, I get sharp for a couple of races a year, is consistent and wins 1 or 2 a year, and likes to stalk and pounce and is a good post for that, unless Big Effect just takes this to another level. Tap Solution. Part of the pace last time, likely to drop back here. I'm not sure he's still got the will to close and pass horses. It's been a good career for him. Another aging gelding, Tap Solution. He's 4-1. I'm surprised he is bet quite this low. Last time was in a race that was won from off the pace. The place horse also came from off the pace, so he was part of it early, which probably played against him, but he always loses ground around that all-important turn, so I'm not sure how much talent remains here. And then Shiva on the outside. Gomez likes to run him back on short rest. Doesn't have a good record to show for it, though, the way that Silva does. So I guess Gomez is throwing spaghetti when he does this. Claimed Shiva there off a workman like 2025 in which he ran through his conditions, basically, Shiva. You know that Godsey had this horse ready, as was the case with all of Godsey's other stock, first time off the bench this year. So that performance at 8-5 as the favorite was a big black mark. Next time in for 32 was in really soft. First time out for Gomez. Did close last time, and a race that was won by a closer. He's the strongest finisher in here, and there's merit in that when you're talking about a 5 furlong race with at least 3 or 4 horses that qualify as front runners. So don't go to sleep on him for a piece. I like his chances to land high on this ticket more than I do those of Tap Solution. And they're similar on the board up there at 7-2 for Tap Solution and 4-1 for Shiva. So possibilities. Big Effect just takes this race right to the house, as he's certainly capable of off his last one. If there is a hint of negative rail in the wind, though, then Smart Coverage could be a role player and keep Big Effect honest down in what could be the worst part of the track. I'm not ready to claim this a negative rail bias, as was apparent on Wednesday, though. Not at all, which kind of muddies the waters here for me a little bit. And then you've got Beyond the Bend, who I figure to trip out pretty well here, Beyond the Bend. But again, would suffer at the hands of Big Effect if Big Effect fires and there is not a negative rail bias in play. And Shiva, I think, is a horse you got to use on your ticket somewhere as the strongest finisher in the field. We've seen some finishers do well last couple of race cards on dirt, even sprinting. So this race is maybe a race that contains one or two too many variables for me to really sink my teeth into. This is not a situation where I'm going to point to the 4-5 favorite as an absolute, utter mortal lock and then tell you I have a really strong opinion about who's going to be second the way I did in the 5th race. I don't see this as the same kind of wagering opportunity. I just don't. Good luck to you guys. In accordance with that comment I just splashed on the screen, yeah, the mic was off momentarily there. When it's red, it's off. You touch it, and it goes off and turns red. And I move it out of my face to watch the race, and then I forget to touch it back on and make it green before I start to yammer again. And the reason I forget it fairly often is because I am what is commonly referred to as an idiot. Yeah, that's the word. That's called idiocy. Idiocy. You guys wouldn't believe how freaking stupid I can be. Maybe you would if you watched me for any length of time. My man Kenny Neely says, I believe that is Young Jock's favorite trip and he can finish. Well said, Kenny. Kenny's a sharp handicapper. Kenny also alluded to the wide trip, the widest finisher there. You know what, though? I don't know if that's bias or if it is just race flow, because when wide closers come with a race flow in their favor, a lot of players conclude that the track's better out there when, in fact, it just shaped up to suit the wide closer. We have seen a couple of other races tonight, right, Kenny? Maybe offer up hints that the inside might not be a great place to be. But whatever the case, you see this sad story play out in the Naked City 10 times a week. 6 furlong speed horse like Big Effect backs up 220 yards to run 5/8. The problem with that, and I laid it out before the race, is that you're in with quicker speeds when you shorten up the 5/8, speeds that are so much quicker, you can't even get the lead with a horse like Big Effect. So all of a sudden, Big Effect has got to try to stalk and pass foes on the fly, something Big Effect has never been able to do and was not able to do tonight victoriously. So once you have got Big Effect just topped, fronted, and relegated to third down the backstretch, and you've got a horse like Smart Coverage and Alfie Sullivan's out there ding-donging for the lead. This is a recipe for here comes Shiva. And I think a lot of players saw it coming because Shiva was 3-1 there, which is pretty heavily bet against the seemingly sexier short rest horse Big Effect there. I wanted no part of the race. Shiva did not surprise me, though I thought Shiva would probably be high up on the ticket there somewhere, but I wasn't going to stampede to the windows to bet on Shiva either. It happens, though, a lot. You see a horse that closes, rallies at 6 furlongs. You shorten them up to 5/8. And, yeah, they have less distance to make an effective rally in, but all of a sudden you've got much weaker speeds and more of them that are ding-donging back and forth and fighting up front. And that can give a horse like Shiva a real screaming, nasty attitude through the home stretch, which is exactly what we saw, that kind of kick from Shiva tonight. And now we come to the ignominious ratings handicap, newfangled way of writing races. Equibase slaps a number on horses according to this complicated algorithm. You should check out my video. Einstein now writes race conditions. I think you'd find it illuminating when it comes to these ratings handicap races. And I do other content sometimes from time to time. I've got a video up called Vets List Fixation, and those are both posted. They're both in the archives here on my YouTube channel. And check it out, Vets List Fixation. And also Einstein now writes horse races. And that's a confusing title, but it's really about the Equibase rating system. And somehow, by virtue of the Equibase rating system, the all-knowing Equibase rating system, and their complicated equals MC squared and then some algorithm, Larimar has been written back into the same race as some of the horses that the same kind of horses that she just absolutely crushed last couple of times in other ratings handicap races. I don't understand how Larimar can only be a 44. Larimar was a 48, I think, before the last race was Larimar. And normally the only way a Larimar, who's worth any 3, maybe 4 of these horses, okay, with her snappy current form, humongous margins of victory. Those margins of victory can tell you something's misaligned in the concept of those ratings handicaps that included Larimar under the heading, okay, with her 21 wins that are near $500,000. She's worth any 3, maybe 4 of these horses. And unless the rare case of a starter allowance horse, maybe a horse that had run for the specified price a long time ago and thus gets to keep beating up on the same hapless, overmatched horses time after time and not see the connections risk claim. And that's not even the case here. Larimar has never been risked for a specified claiming price. It's not even a starter allowance. So there was something fundamentally wrong about a race heading that puts Larimar, the proverbial fox, in the hen house against these woefully overmatched horses. And if she loses, I'll say the same thing. I will say the same exact thing. I think part of it is the horsemen need to be educated about the ratings numbers and where they can go and look them up and realize what they're apt to hook under a given race heading. I think this one spans from 30 to 50, which is kind of a wide swath. So the idea is to pull in as many overmatched horses on the bottom end of the parameters as possible so you can make a horse race out of it. I get it. I understand it. And Mountaineers had some success filling these races. And it's not Mountaineer that I have an issue with. My issue is with a race being written to begin with, based on any kind of numbers that permit a Larimar to come back and prey on these kind of hapless, glorified $4,000 horses yet again, because she's a bona fide $25,000 claimer, is Larimar. Any way you cut it, any way you slice it, any way you dice it. I don't think the ratings numbers completely synthesize a horse's current form and past accomplishments into one seamless number to begin with. And I am pretty dead certain, and this is what my video is predicated on, Einstein now writes condition races, and I'm dead fire certain is something of an authority on cheap races, how they're structured, how they're written, and the intricate but considerable class levels that exist within the conditions at a given claiming price, and then the monumental hike up to the next level, which might not seem like a lot, but is, towards the bottom of a cheap racetrack like Mountaineer. And I'm darn sure that their numbers don't account for all the classes within a claiming price or two that exist at a place like Mountaineer. I'm pretty certain the Equibase numbers just don't even begin to account for that. So you get Larimar, who's won 2 ratings handicaps in a row by 16.5 total lengths. Back is 2-1 on the morning line. Even before scratches, Larimar was never going to be 2-1, was never going to be 4-5, was never going to be even money. Larimar is going to be an incredibly short price here, and rightfully so, guys. Larimar's 3-5 right now. You ain't getting 3-5 on Larimar, folks. It's not happening. And just some more insight into the numbers. Bonita Vita, who's won 4 in a row, has been leaving the field like Ruffy, and I get it. I understand it. But those are all $4,000 non-life condition races. Quite an achievement to run the straight rack on those races, which you almost never see done. And the margins are head spinning to boot. But Bonita Vita, the average buyer speed figure from those 4 wins is 56, south of 60. Larimar runs a 69 last. I'm a 68 the time before. Larimar is a bona fide $25,000 claimer and proved her bona fides in that kind of competition twice this year already. And Bonita Vita has been winning $4,000 non-life condition races. So taking all this disparity into account, what do you think the difference is in the official Equibase horse ratings between Bonita Vita and Larimar, Mighty Larimar? Bonita Vita is a 43, just 1 point south of Larimar's 44. Are you kidding me? Are you joking me? Bonita Vita can beat Larimar, and that is still wrong. It's just wrong. At that point, it's time to retool the whole system when it comes to horses like Bonita Vita and Larimar. So we're getting close to post time. Bonita Vita, it's curious to me why they never class hiked her after they claimed her. They were begging previous connections to jump back in and reclaim Bonita Vita. There got to be some issues here, folks. I got news for you. Paul Murray, very quirky, is capable of flashing extreme speed on occasion. And with flight control out, maybe the lead is hers for a little while before Larimar puts the hammer down. Opposite the crowd here, number 2, 10-1. I don't get it. I don't understand it. Opposite the crowd, though. Protected from claim last 3 races. 2 ratings handicaps and a starter allowance, loses them by a total of like 38 lengths. And that's on the heels of a 12-length drubbing and a modest 62.50 claimer there. It's got a good win record, and Silva, I guess, is high on her. But it's hard to imagine why. She's not too old yet. I think his faith is probably going to pay off in her at some point, but not against Larimar, I don't think, huh? Not against mighty Larimar. Silver Canis on the outside's got speed, used the speed bias to win just 1 week into the meet there when a lot of the Mathis horses were ready. And then we come to Larimar, 11 for 21 at Mountain, and was Mountaineer Horse of the Year on the distaff side a couple of seasons back. And unlike a lot of Mountaineer horses, has taken her game on the road to Mahoning and come up stout. She's that rare speed horse with a lot of lick, but a lot of fight to even rebid and win at the longer 6 furlong distance you see. And she is not found wanting at the shorter trips either. She's always quick enough to go out there and get her hooks in those leaders early, if not outright get the lead. Larimar, extremely unlikely to lose. And if that happens to be the case here, and I'd be shocked if Bonita Vita beats her. But if it happens, the ratings are still misaligned for Bonita Vita to be just 1 point behind Larimar on the vaunted, newfangled Equibase horse ratings system. I don't think Larimar is going to lose. I actually highlighted my own comment there. I put it on the screen. Bonita Vita 7-5 to beat Larimar. And what freaking universe. She was so bogus. I think I laid it out very clearly beforehand, did I not? Larimar wins it, not by the kind of margin you would expect from a 1-2 favorite, but was very impressive, I thought, because her heart was on full display there. Larimar mentioned the quirky Paul Murray can be very quick when she's in a mood. So first Larimar has to deal with her extended speed battle, finally dispatches her, and then here comes the bogus Bonita Vita with her best shot, makes that first crack at Larimar, and then she gets sent packing. And then here comes the 2-horse with a perfect trip, splits horses from well back behind a competitive pace, has a full head of steam, looms an apparent winner in mid-stretch without going around all of them, as a jock adroitly finds a seam there, and then she can't get by the dead game. Very, very brave Larimar there. I thought Larimar was really impressive. Not at all surprised that Bonita Vita doesn't run second because, number one, she's beating non-life condition horses at the bottom level. So those margins don't really mean anything. And plus her average winning by her speed fig, 56. Big whoop. In addition, I've had concerns about no class hike for Bonita Vita. If you're a small mom and pop outfit that has your hands on a Bonita Vita, are you going to watch her win by 10 lengths a couple of times and run her right back for the same $4,000 if she's got a sound leg in each corner? I think not. So on the surface of things, I didn't like her. Reading between the lines, I liked her even less. And I mentioned the tell, I think, with opposite the crowd there, that Silva kept protecting her from claim there. And that's after getting drubbed for 62.5 and also for $5,000. And tonight, the fourth straight start in which he's chosen to protect her from the claim box brigade. So he knew something about opposite the crowd that we didn't. So no big surprise that she ends up second there, opposite the crowd. I wish I would have played the exact. I really do, to be honest about it, because love Larimar and had a deep and abiding hate for Bonita Vita in that race. Long delay we had tonight, guys. And my wife, before she went to RN duty at a nearby med center, was kind enough to make Little Bear and me pasta with meatballs, which is on the stove upstairs. I didn't eat all day. I don't have a strong opinion on the last race. With apologies, guys, if you don't care a lot, I'm going to bow out. I'll leave you guys your own conversing and your own devices when it comes to race number 8. Really enjoyed it a lot tonight. Guys, did not make a lot of the card going in, was able to make a score. It kind of popped up out of nowhere unexpectedly. I guess there's some kind of a lesson or some kind of a moral in that. Looking forward to tomorrow. No rain in the forecast, so I'm thinking good chance Mountain will be back on grass. I'm going to handicap that way anyways until I finally get word. Usually at about 2 in the afternoon or something like that is when word comes down. But whatever the case, thanks very much for getting with me here in a place I like to call the dungeon. Hope you come to love it as much as I do here in the dungeon. And as I say all the time, you guys are not just viewers. You guys are my friends. Mark Patterson out.